Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome back to my kitchen. It is time for me to get started making some broth. Yesterday, I spent time making that stock and making my soup from the stock from the day before. I broke down that chicken, so now I've got the chicken carcass over here in my big stock pot. I'm gonna chop up some vegetables and put that in there so we can start making some broth. Now, broth is made with mostly bones and cartilage sort of bits from a chicken carcass, or with knuckle bones from a cow or something like that, whereas stock is made with primarily meat-based components that you've boiled down. The big difference is there's a totally different nutrient profile. With your meat stock, it's very soothing and calming and healing. Same thing with bone broth, but with bone broth you also have higher amounts of things like lysine and glutamate and glutamic acid, which are really great and lovely, but sometimes when you have digestive compromise, these types of components can be too much for your body to handle. So that's why the GAPS protocol starts with just stocks primarily, and then that's why I'm making this broth here for later. When we get down a couple of stages down the road in this GAPS protocol, then I'll be able to use the broth and stock almost interchangeably with most of my recipes. So let's get ready to get started. Oh, before we get started, I totally forgot. I am making my ginger tea this morning for my first thing in the morning hot beverage. I have my wonderful cup of coffee waiting for me just over here, and I would love to have that first, but I'm gonna wait. I'm going to drink my ginger tea first and my water, and then make sure I'm getting myself up on track, staying on track, putting myself up for success while I make my broth. So one thing I realized is that I have this wonderful cast iron tea kettle, and it's supposed to be for green tea and those types of things, but I use that little infuser basket here with my ginger, and I realized I can just put this tea kettle right on my gas stove. I don't have to boil water first in this kettle and pour it to steep in here. I can just heat it all the way through, and it works great. So that is what I'm gonna do now. I have some wonderful Berkey filtered water already measured out in here before I realized I could just put it right into this tea kettle. And now we're going to fill up our teapot. I go about halfway full on this teapot because it's actually deceptively large. It holds quite a lot of liquid, and I don't really need all that much tea. So I'm gonna put the top on here and then get it on the stove and start heating away. While that's heating up for me to be able to drink, I'm gonna chop all my vegetables to go into my broth. So I've had my broth sitting in the stock pot, my big carcass with not a whole lot in there, just a bunch of water and 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Now, apple cider vinegar is awesome because it helps to demineralize those bones and pull out some of those good nutrients that are stored inside. So that has to sit for a little while to kind of let it do its thing, mixed with a little bit of water so those bones can start to break down. So while that's happening, I'll chop up and prepare my vegetables that I will put into the stock for flavoring. I put all of my vegetables here in this giant pitcher just so I could get them off the cutting board and filled it up with water. So now I'm going to pour it into the stock pot. So here we'll turn it on low, or rather I guess I'll turn it on high for a little while until it starts to heat up really well. Once it starts boiling, I'll put it down on low, and we'll leave it on low for probably 6 or 8 hours. And we'll come back and stir it once in a while, scoop off any scum that might have come up to the top, and it'll be ready for us for dinner time. My tea has finished steeping, but the handle is really hot, so I'm gonna get a towel to pick that up and pour it. I've got my teaspoon here to add my coconut oil, and a little bit of honey. Ooh, it's a little warmer than yesterday, a little melty. of honey. You don't need a lot. I just like a tiny little bit in there. See? Just a very small amount. Now we are ready to start the day. Yeah, pretty good. So here I am, a few minutes later, sitting down at my laptop here to do some paperwork for the day, drinking my ginger tea with coconut oil and a little honey. And I tell you, it's not the same as coffee. I would love some coffee right now, but I'm gonna drink my tea and enjoy it because it's really tasty. It's just not the same as coffee, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm done with paperwork for the morning and I am having my little bit of black coffee. It is so good. And I'm heating up some soup for my first meal of the day. Here we go, nice little soup pot. It's gonna be pretty good. That's the hard part, I think, about this protocol. Oh, you hear it sizzling. Is that it is all about eating soup, breakfast, lunch, dinner for the first few days here. So thankfully each stage of this protocol is only 3 to 5 days long. So I can eat soup for breakfast for 3 days. That's not a big deal. So now I'm home, back from the office. My broth is bubbling away here. Smells great. I'm gonna let that go for a couple hours longer. It is about 7 p.m. now, so I'm gonna let that go for about another 2 hours before I turn it off. And here is what I got from Necessity Farms. All of this wonderful pre-ground thawing meat for my dog who eats raw. What that is, it's the mixture of meat, flesh meat, and organ and bone, which is really, really great for dogs. We'll do a whole separate vlog on that some other time. But for now, I am going to finish up with the soup, or the broth that I'm cooking. I'm gonna eat some soup, and I think I'm going to sign off for the evening. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that you learned something and were able to see it's not too bad eating broth and soup for your first couple of days here on the GAPS protocol. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Good night.